Iconic Sonics and a new episode with an old friend, a Seattle sports executive who has been a part of this city's sports fabric for many, many years, the CEO of the Seattle Kraken, Tod Leiweke. Tod, good to see you, and thanks for doing this. How are you, Chief?
Good morning to you, Chief. I'm doing fine this morning.
I mentioned a longtime Seattle sports executive, and for people who, and there's so many new people into this area, there are people that might not know, and I want to explain your background a little bit to kind of set up our first discussion, which is you came to Seattle in 2003, you were with the Seahawks, you rose to become the CEO of Vulcan Sports, which meant for Paul Allen, you were overseeing the Seahawks and the Portland Trail Blazers. Along the way, you worked with the Seahawks and Virginia Mason to develop the Boeing Classic Golf Tournament. You worked with Adrian Hanauer and Gary Wright and some other talented people, Joe Roth, to bring the Seattle Sounders into existence, into MLS. You left and went to Tampa for a few years with the Lightning, then into New York for a few years with the NFL, and then back to Seattle in 2018 to oversee the Seattle Kraken, a remarkable launch of a franchise into the NHL. And I bring all this up because with your work with the Seahawks, with the Boeing Classic, with the Sounders, and with the Kraken, you've got a deep Seattle sports DNA. And I announced that as a way of kind of leading into our first thing of you were here in 2006, 2007, 2008, and watched as the Sonics kind of slowly drifted out of our orbit. And I know you've talked about it before, but just kind of your thoughts and your memories of that time. I felt helpless. I never saw anything outside of personal things, health and safety, that affected me more. It was such a tough thing to go through. What are your memories of seeing that happen as an executive for another team?
Yeah, well, in your quick sort of bio of my journey is largely true. I was in Tampa for 5 years. And it is relevant because that was a team at risk. The economics were just absolutely miserable. The team was losing an enormous amount of money. But there was a very committed owner who said, we're going to make this work. And almost through, sheer force of will, he was able to get that to work there. And we were losing an enormous amount of money just on a straight P&L, revenue, expenses. So, when you do have that force of will and you have somebody desirous to make it happen, it's a powerful piece. And I was really proud of what we did down there for 5 years. Knew Roger Goodell, left, thought I'd end my career at the NFL, and lo and behold, had a chance really to quote unquote come back home and do what we're doing. But back to your question, it was mind-boggling that this city that even at that point in time was really rising fast. A lot of positive things in the city. The economy was healthy. The economy was resilient. The stadium, for the Seahawks was the loudest in the world. The Sounders were a huge success, but somehow we couldn't figure it out. And, it was a shame. It's something that I think is really hard to reconcile. It wasn't the market. It wasn't the fans. It was a whole bunch of things, though, that came together and caused a moment in time where the team literally picked up and moved to Oklahoma City. By the way, the Vancouver Grizzlies left Vancouver and moved to Memphis. So in the Pacific Northwest, we lost 2 teams to Memphis and Oklahoma City. So it's probably not the strategy that the NBA would have written, but it's what happened, and here we are today.
I mentioned, I felt helpless in watching it happen, and I don't like to dwell on the history too much because I think we're in a good place now with the sign. But it really is. When they left, there was a heartbreak in this city, and I don't think I don't know. I'll just say for me, I never thought 13 years later we'd still be talking, or 14 years later. When are they coming back? It's taken a long time, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But maybe from you're a community guy and a relationship guy. That was a real heartbreaker for people. Without pointing any fingers, just a sad story when that team left.
Yeah, and some of my dearest friends had loved this team forever, and it was a team with an amazing, rich history. It was the first pro team here. And, there was an amazing history. Some amazing personalities were a part of this team. And, but we just couldn't quite get it figured out. And ultimately, the public-private, partnership that helped bring them here did not come to helping save them. And, we sat there for a long time, but not only without an appropriate arena for an NBA team or an NHL team, but lots of events just skipped Seattle. A lot of really important music events just simply didn't come and play. And here's this world-class city with so many assets, so many resources. But an arena, I think Des Moines, Iowa had more events in their arena than we did ours in that final year.
Unbelievable. I think there's three things necessary. We've talked about this a lot on the show. Three things necessary to get the Sonics back to Seattle. The first thing, and you mentioned it, an arena. You had to have a building. Well, check, and we'll talk about that as the show progresses. But the Climate Pledge Arena is beautiful. It's NBA ready. It's the perfect building for the job. The second thing, and I don't know if this is a little out of order maybe, but you're going to have an ownership group. Everything I can see, you guys have been very open about it, that you'd like to be in the discussion. If there's an NBA expansion franchise available, you'd like to talk about being a part of the solution of getting it back here. I've heard other people are interested as well. My assumption is finding an ownership group in Seattle for a potential NBA team would not be difficult. So if we say the arena's ready, and it is, if we say there are ownership groups willing, and I think there are, then the third thing is the NBA willingness. And everyone has kind of come to the conclusion that the NBA is driving this story. It's when they want to expand or deal with Seattle that's when it will happen. Is that assumption correct? Arena, ownership group, NBA willingness. Are those the three key things? And B, what about the NBA's willingness? Is there any feel from you on where that stands?
I'd say your assessment is fair. I would say the hardest part of all of this and what precipitated this sordid tale to begin with was the arena. So I think they paid great attention to the development of the arena. They've certainly paid attention to the success that the Seattle Kraken have had. And now we will never get in front of the commissioner. Adam is a terrific guy. He's well aware of what's going on here, and we will just wait patiently and never get in front of him or his agenda. And we're going to be super respectful. I think that's a really, really important piece here, is being respectful, allowing the NBA processes to move on, but making sure that we put out the biggest and brightest welcome mat. I think we have.
Have you got any feel, though, and I understand, letting them drive the story, it seems again and again, just from reading the tea leaves and seeing things Adam Silver has said, that there is some interest there. There's interest in maybe looking into Seattle. And as you said, the building really affects that. Is that the feeling you get that for those of us who are hopeful that this could happen in the next few years, that there is indeed interest at the other end without getting, as you say, in front of it?
Yeah, I think that, you can try and read the tea leaves, but I think more important, it's making sure we're ready. And I think we are as a community. I think when the Sonics left, it was a different town. I think when and if the NBA comes back, they're going to come back to a bigger, more vibrant, more robust marketplace. They're going to come back to a building that's world-class. I think our building's as beautiful as any arena in the land. And it has been built both structurally and economically to accommodate the NBA's return.
And I kind of skipped past one thing, but I made the assumption. I believe there's ownership groups that if Adam Silver were to call today and say, "Hey, we're interested," I think there's people who would be interested in talking with him. Is that an accurate assessment? In your world, do you feel there are people interested in making the large financial commitment to bringing an NBA team here?
Yeah, I think there's really two sides of it. There's quote unquote the economics and the deal and all of those pieces and the arena working and the ability to sell suites and club seats and all those things. And then there's the community and almost the spiritual side. And I think that, bringing the NBA back to Seattle would be an incredible privilege for, any single person, much less an ownership group. And so I think that's at play here. I think that, righting a wrong is always something, people, relish doing in their lifetimes. And this was definitely a wrong that could get righted in a very prolific way.
There's a guy in your organization with the Kraken who I don't think people know as much about. People recognized your name, and they knew Tod Leiweke from OVG, and they knew the Ackerleys and Adrian Hanna. There's a lot of people involved in this effort to get the NHL here. David Bonderman was kind of a mystery, and he's an interesting guy. He's had tremendous success in his life. He's got a direct tie to Seattle from his education at the University of Washington. And he also, I think, is still a 10% owner of the Boston Celtics, which I assume, again, is just a positive in terms of a relationship established already within the NBA. What can you tell us about David Bonderman, who, again, I think for all of the people in your group is the one guy who people don't know a lot about?
Yeah, I think on that community side, he's just loving what we've done here. He loves the music side of things. He's a huge music fan. He wasn't as big of a hockey fan, but he's sure become one. He watches every game, and he does have real ties to the community. He went to school at UW. He was a security guard in the Space Needle in the day, and today he chairs UW's finance committee. So he's in charge of UW's endowment and chairing that committee. So he has a real tie, and I think on the community side, he really has a passion for what sports can mean and do for a community. And he's seen that firsthand with what's happened with the Seattle Kraken, what's happened with this building and the climate pledge and everything it stands for. And so I think, he feels the same way we all do, which is we can't get in front of the NBA. We've achieved too much to not just let this process play out. But you got to like where we are. If and when the NBA says they're ready, I think we as a community are absolutely ready. And I think Mr. Bonderman very much believes that this is an unfulfilled part of the commitment that we made to the building and to the community and getting this right.
It's funny you'd say that because it really was. I put a lot of. I felt great when you guys did the groundbreaking, and I think it might have been Tod Leiweke, your brother from OVG, who said, "Look," and I don't remember what the exact words were, but the Sonics were addressed and like, "Look, we want to get this building done. We want to get the NHL up and going, and then we want to go get the Sonics." I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but that from the start, you guys have recognized that as a key part of the commitment to the community.
Yeah, and it was obvious. And at some point in time, something had to break this logjam, though. And I think one reason we waited so long is what was going to go first. And the NHL was ready, and the NHL has been welcomed with open arms into the community, and it's been fantastic. And I think it's also an indication of things to come, because I think that there's markets our size, there's markets even a little bit smaller that successfully host NBA and NHL teams. The economics of the building have been built specifically for this event coming. And we've not been coy about this. We've been open and upfront, but we are going to be respectful. We're never going to get in front of the commissioner or those that decide. They know we're here. We have friends up and down, ownership. Obviously, Mr. Bonderman has great influence. My brother has great influence. I know a number of owners. The Ackerleys have a standing reputation in Adam's office. So there's a lot of positives here.
You touched on the building. Talk a little bit about the details and the extras that you guys built into this building so that, again, if and when the NBA decides to make a move, you guys can say, look, our building's, more or less ready to go for a pro basketball team. That was something from the start you guys did. When you took people through on tours, you showed them the things. What were the things you needed to add to make sure the building's ready to go?
Well, first, the building's going to be an incredible home for the Seattle Storm. Every time I'm in the building, I look up, I see their championship banners, and they deserve this building. They deserve the stability that's going to come with this building. They deserve the economic opportunity that's going to come with this building. Their ownership, we're very close with them. And so, people ask, does the building work for basketball? Totally. Seattle U plays there now. Gonzaga, Alabama was a spectacular event in our building, totally full. And I walked the whole building and saw all the sightlines firsthand. And all it did is reconfirm. We already knew that it was a terrific building, and the sight lines were perfect, and there was a steepness to the pitch. And so it's really been accommodated, for basketball and its design. But, the other pieces were things like transportation. So we took a very proprietary interest in transportation. For the Seattle Kraken, we've embedded a Orca pass in every ticket. We got involved in a partnership with the monorail. A fantastic guy named Tom Albro had been running the monorail, but it didn't take the Orca pass, and it was largely sort of relegated in our transportation system as almost a tourist ride. Well, it's an actual, it's a very, very effective means of getting from the central hub of Sound Transit to the arena. It's a 90-second ride. And in 2 years, when the East-West connector is made, our system is going to be larger than DC's metro system, for example. And we're seeing amazing ridership levels on the monorail coming to our events and to Kraken games. As many as 25% of the people coming to the game are now riding that monorail. And, we were challenged saying, hey, it's hard to get in and out of there. Well, it is an urban building, and it's part of the beauty of that building is its scales, and it's in this beautiful part of our town, and it's a signature part of the skyline. We didn't build it in some transitioning neighborhood or in a distant suburb. It's right in the heart of our city, and so getting in and getting out, we've taken serious. Former city council person Rob Johnson, who, by the way, is a huge NBA fan, led a lot of our transportation initiatives. But, you can point at the monorail and say, we took a proprietary interest in this. And there's more we can do there. We fixed the Westlake station, but there's more fixes that can be made to make that even more effective. And what it does is liberates, thousands of parking spots midtown. It also connects east-west. So you then would connect in the basement, ride the elevator or the escalators up, 90-second ride right to Seattle Center. Seattle Center is beautiful and will be welcoming for all events. We did this really cool tree lighting thing on the campus, which was really my brother's passion. And that campus is evolving and changing and getting better by the day. So, a lot has been fixed here. And now it's a matter of bringing events, telling people we're open for business. And as COVID wanes, and I believe it will, I believe we're going to come out of a very, very dark time here, and an incredibly, incredibly challenging time to launch this enterprise. I, in my wildest imagination, and I have a wild imagination, I could have never conceived that we would do something like this in the midst of a global pandemic. And it's been hard. Make no mistake, it has been hard.
I mean, watching, it's been obvious. I mean, you guys have had to jump hurdles that you never could have imagined. Congratulations on the traffic thing. I was a skeptic. I thought, okay, this is going to be a hard thing. And the anecdotal evidence, I haven't seen a lot of complaints of people getting in or out. It is a stadium. It is an urban area. You got to budget some time. And the monorail, I've been on it. It's packed. People are using it. I was a little skeptical that would work. You guys obviously did a lot of study on that, because that was a big thing of getting people in and out. And that's where the city had changed since you'd been here, is that the Mercer project was done. Some of the traffic patterns have changed there.
Yeah, and a lot more people have moved downtown. There are a lot more people walking to the building than ever before. And buildings like this belong in urban centers. It might take a few minutes longer to get there, but once you get there, you're experiencing something that is so fantastic. This beautiful, beautiful landmark building that stands for great things, the climate pledge. I mean, that's the other part of what's been built here is, we have this fantastic partnership with Amazon, and that building stands for things that are admirable, not just in our community, but on a global basis. We've had people from all over the world come and say, how do we also build responsibility on sustainability in a facility like ours? We're proud of the best practices we've laid in. We're going to certify as a zero carbon building. We'll buy some carbon credits, but we're doing things that have never been done that people said couldn't be done. People said if you took fossil fuel out of the building, there are going to be substantial compromises. There haven't been. The food has been outstanding. We've learned to cook with electric. We make ice for the team out of rainwater collected from the roof. And yes, our sweaters take a little longer in the electric dryer than a gas dryer, but we've figured it all out. And we've got a great story to be told. When the time comes for us to present our case, it will be an amazing, compelling presentation.
To the NBA, you're talking.
To the NBA and, to other events. We're dreaming big about all sorts of things. Could Seattle become, a home for figure skating? International figure skating is a big deal. We have 3 sheets of ice that have now been built in the city. Our training center will actually draw more people than we will to our games. It's been a huge success. And I'm not going to get into details, but we've also thought about what a training center should look like for the NBA. And I have a pretty good track record of being involved in the VMAC and getting that built on the shores of Lake Washington. Our project in Northgate's been a huge success, and we will figure out the same for the NBA at the right time.
And to wrap up this segment, and I want to talk hockey with you in the second segment. When we talk NBA and we talk Seattle, there's a lot of great names you think of, but one of them is now what you tell your Uber driver or your cabbie or whoever. Hey, I need to go to First Avenue North and Lenny Wilkins Way. That's where I'm going tonight, because I'm going to see a show at the arena, or I'm going to see hockey, or hopefully someday I'm going to see the NBA. Renaming the street in honor of Lenny was a no-brainer. I think that was a city initiative. I know you guys were involved. Explain a little bit about that and talk a little bit about Lenny and your relationship with him.
Well, it wasn't just the city and it wasn't just us. It's community. It was obvious. And here's this guy that could have lived anywhere, and he chose to stay here and chose to do powerful, powerful good. The Odessa Clinic and the work he did there, it's amazing the work he did. And he was one of the pioneers in the NBA of truly giving back. When he was a player, he started his own community initiative. He started a foundation. This guy is remarkable. And sometimes people can become almost ubiquitous. Like you hear their name and but if you really understand this guy and everything he stood for as a player, as a coach, as a pioneer, and then for me, what he did in community, it's a privilege to know him. And I don't ever walk into the building and not think about his name on that street and what he's meant to our city. And, if you think about some personal motivation, just for him alone, seeing the NBA come back to town would be an amazing thing. And so I love the man. I consider him a great friend. And I want to, help and do everything we can to get the NBA back if for him, if for no other reason.
I'll talk about 2 other, I thought people that made great stands, and maybe they were just symbolic, but the late Paul Allen, who you were very close to, and Mark Cuban were the only 2 NBA owners to vote against the move of Seattle. Clearly, you guys were going to have to vote against it, but I know you talked to Mr. Allen about that. That was more than a symbolic gesture. That was a real example of the pride you guys felt for this community. And I always think of our friend Kevin Calabro saying, and they wanted him to come with the team, and he said, "I'm staying. I'm a Seattle guy. I'm going to stay here." Those things, as the years go by, again, you can say it's symbolic. I think they mean something to fans. They remember who was in your corner at the toughest times, and you guys and Kevin certainly were.
And Mr. Allen and his love for the Blazers, and that was when I came to the Seahawks. Paul loved the Seahawks and wanted to keep the team here, but he had an incredible passion for the Blazers. And, occasionally somebody will ask me a flippant question saying, well, would the Blazers? No, not going to happen.
Yeah.
Not going to happen. And that's great, because it shouldn't happen. Teams shouldn't leave towns. And the heartbreak we felt, it's hard to imagine that being felt in another community. So
thanks for spending a lot of time talking about the Sonics, and we'll probably touch on them a little bit here, but we've got to talk about this new team that you and a lot of other people brought to life over the last couple of years. And the Kraken are halfway into their first season. There's a lot of hockey stuff we can talk about. And I think the most important and the one I want to lead with is the arrival of Davey Jones, the goodest dog in the NHL. You knew I'd be a sucker for that. I was laughing. I said, "Boy, That's like one of the great PR moves ever. And I know you guys had probably planned it, but it's like, we're in a little bit of a losing streak. What should we do? Hey, how about we adopt a puppy? Who's going to have a problem with that? Is Davey Jones, does he get to go into the CEO's office when he wants?
He goes anywhere he wants, and he's still getting trained properly. I said, look, if he's going to pee in the office, bring him into my office and let's get it on. But I know you're a dog lover. I in fact visited you once, and I think your dog did not take kindly to me. What was his name?
Well, I'm trying to think. I think you probably met. I'm trying to think. You probably met RJ, and RJ was a tough hombre. Now you are behind legendary Mariners general manager Pat Gillick, who was nipped at by both RJ and Chico. Both dogs took a piece of Gillick. So you
I don't know about Chico, but I think it was RJ who was snapped a little bit. But he, by the way, we're huge dog fans. So, and bringing a dog into our world, other teams have done it. We think we picked the right dog, and we have one staff person. They work hard at it. They adopted the dog. The dog lives with Chris, but the dog is a part of our events, comes to games, and it's a terrific thing. We incubated a hawk at the Seahawks. This has been a little easier than that. That took like 3 years. We had to find a hawk that would tolerate all those things going on in the stadium. And Mr. Allen used to ask me often, when's that thing going to fly? Well, it took 3 years from incubation to the point where that flew. And the guy training them was from Spokane, and he taught these hawks to fly around aircraft to eradicate other birds that would sometimes cause problems with military aircraft. And so we got that hawk to fly, and it worked out. It did take off one game and landed up on the scoreboard above the hawk's nest. And we were like, oh my gosh, this hawk is smart, like a great view. And it's probably, and I wish we'd taken a picture. Eventually he flew back down because we had a little red light, and it was mealtime when that light flashed.
I may put a red light in my house for that. That'd be a good thing to know. So I know when it's mealtime. Well, he's a great looking dog. As I say, you're about halfway through the season as we talk, and they don't give you ribbons for trying in pro sports, but I will say this: you guys play very entertaining hockey. 9 games out of 10, you're in the game in the third period. I know you want to start converting some of those opportunities into wins, and you've had some wins. You've had some nice wins this season. On ice, has the expectation been about, has it been met by you? Did you think you'd be a little more competitive, or did you think this would be more of a traditional expansion team? Everybody said, it's going to be like Las Vegas. I'm like, that was kind of an outlier and a statistical anomaly. This to me feels more like a typical expansion team. Is this where you thought you'd be?
Yeah. And I think that, when you take something like this on, it's a building process. So we all knew that we were going to do it. All modesty aside, I'm proud of my record. I was proud of what we did at the Seahawks. We took an organization that was having its challenges both at the gate and on the field, and we got them to a really good place. And that wasn't any one move. That was about a lot of people working together. Tampa went in, and that franchise was in peril. And 5 years later, we were in the Stanley Cup Finals, and now they have. They've won 2 Stanley Cups, and they're well positioned to make a third run at it. The Sounders and the competitive level so our competitiveness comes, but requires some patience, because to do it right, you have to build with young players who are going to wear your sweater for the long haul. And so we won as many games as I would like. No. Are we on track to our goal of, in that third year, having a team that's a regular in the play? Yep. I think we're on track. I think we're building a little bit of a DNA of how we want to play. But if you stand far enough back, the pieces that are really important to building a long-term winner are, first, your arena. Players come and don't feel inspired. It's hard to compete in free agency. It's hard to retain your own players. We have an incredible arena. The fan support has been amazing in that arena. We have an amazing facility at Northgate that they call home. That's where they go to work every day at Northgate. And our facility is as good as there is in the world. And then we announced yesterday, the jersey of the Coachella Valley Firebirds. And I'm actually down there now. We had a tour of the arena yesterday afternoon. We're going back over tomorrow. Fabulous facility. And we've been, there's not having an American Hockey League team in our, scope here has been a challenge. We split a roster with Florida, but that means it's split right down the middle. So as COVID hit, and we were, had lots of call-ups. We're pulling them all the way from Charlotte, North Carolina. They're flying all the way. Sometimes they're connecting. So these young guys, get up, told they've been called up. They jump on a flight. There's a lot of times connecting in another city. And as COVID really hit, that was a challenge. Well, we're going to go from having a challenging situation with our American Hockey League team to maybe the best situation in all of the American Hockey League. The spectacular valley, the Coachella Valley, right in the heart of it, a brand new arena with an adjacent training center. So there's 2 sheets of ice being built, and it's just fabulous. So I can't help but be optimistic about this program and where it's going. Ron Francis is down here. We're having some hockey meetings. We're talking about, retaining players. We're talking about free agency. We're talking about the draft. And yep, I would have liked to won some more games. There were some early on games that were close that we just couldn't figure out a way how to win them. But overall, this program's on a really good path, and we're going to do right by the fans because they deserve it.
Speaking of the fans, do you have any kind of a feel on, I know you guys try to measure every metric you can because, research is good to do all the time. Do you have a feel for, on a typical night, how many newbies you have in the arena? I went to a game recently and took a guy who had never been to an NHL game. He had a great time, loved it. There are people there who clearly know the sport, and I've seen people who clearly don't at this point, which is to be expected. Do you have any idea percentage-wise where that falls?
Yeah, I mean, we have 17,000 tickets sold on any given night. A cool thing we did was we took 4,500 season tickets and cut them down the middle. And we wanted to do that because we felt that the difference in the queuing time during that epic day, March 1st, 2018, it was not much difference between somebody having a relatively low priority number that day and a higher priority number. And we just felt there was, we needed to do something. And, a lot of discussion on that because somebody got a priority number. They wanted to buy a full season ticket. Mm-hmm. But they were understanding. They were understanding that there had been, literally a run on the bank that day. And so we took those 4,500 seats, cut them down the middle. So now you've got, 9,000 half-season tickets. But we're seeing people come in. I think, there is a dynamic with the secondary market literally collapsing amidst the coronavirus. And so I think people who bought full seasons and thought they'd be able to go on a secondary market and sell some tickets maybe haven't seen the market that they thought. But that's true on a global basis. And again, I think we're coming out of this. We've tried to, our fans have been so fantastic in being compliant and wearing masks. I don't like wearing a mask. I know that sometimes people, on our big, beautiful 2 scoreboards are speaking into a microphone. You can't quite hear them because they're wearing a mask. Mm-hmm. It's not been a perfect way to launch a franchise. And we thought we'd have more concerts than we have. We're going to get them. We think that this year is going to be an incredible concert year as this cloud lifts. And, will it lift? I think it will. We talk to people all the time. We have great advisors. They have differing points of view, but I think most people believe that, this dark cloud is going to lift here. And you see it every day pointing in that direction.
You mentioned something that, I don't know, 10 years, 20 years ago, we might not have even heard the phrase secondary ticket market. Pro sports teams have gotten into that side of the business. There's revenue there, and they've seen that, and they work now. Whereas it used to be you didn't want scalpers, or you kind of looked the other way. Now teams are involved in it, so there's that. And then the other thing teams and leagues more are getting involved in is the idea of being able to gamble, which is certainly new in our lifetime. What impact is that going to have, Todd? I don't know if it's a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years, when you're going to be able to legally place a bet on games when you walk in the arena. What impact is that going to have on your sport and on the Kraken?
Yeah, I think it will have an effect. It will have an effect on fandom. definitely some positives there for sure. People engaging who otherwise wouldn't, taking a deeper interest in the game. And fact is, you can look overseas and see that this has been managed pretty well with big sporting events like the Premier League.
Hmm.
Having said that, there are some downsides. It's people coming to games and worried more about the point spread than, for instance, your specific team. Um, but it's proven to be a really important source of revenue. And I'm not talking about leagues. I'm talking about, for instance, in our state, our agreement with the native tribes and our First Nations, have, there's a long history there. We do a land declaration before every game.
Hmm.
I did a little history lesson. That area in which the arena is built was one of the last organized settlements of the coastal Salish peoples. And so they're very, very involved in this, and they will be one of the beneficiaries. And we think that's a good thing, so long as the interests of the fans are served. And I think fans do want to have this element to the games. They want it to be properly managed, and they want it to, they want to make sure that there's a whole ethos system there that they can believe in. So it's something we're working on for sure with the other teams.
You mentioned from the arena standpoint the importance of live music, and that industry is still in a comeback mode and because of the virus. What about that, and about the extras you baked into the building, the artists, room for the artists, a recording studio I think was put into the building. Talk a little bit about the synergy of Climate Pledge Arena with live music, because that's important to your financial model.
Well, you're a massive music fan. You have a hometown band that you travel across the world to see.
Mm.
So I know well of your passion. But we are a special music city, right? I mean, we have so much authentic music history that's real. And in music, we've fought above our weight class. We've produced amazing, musicians who changed the world. I worked for a guy, Paul Allen. He had intense, deep passion for music. Um, so this building was chartered to be a great music venue too. And the wrap on the building is if you liked hearing music, twice, there was good value at the Key Arena because the sound would just move from wall to wall. But in a building like ours, you can build concert hall acoustics if you're willing to make the investment. And we think we did that. And early on, all the engineers, all the sound tests, it all proved out. But the real test was, how did Bocelli sound in that building? The first shows, and for instance, Bocelli, I was there and walked to different sections to see if it was pitch perfect, and it was. And I remember that night literally getting the chills, just hearing him sing and hearing his voice soar and what felt like concert hall perfect acoustics. So it's a big deal, and really excited. And this building's going to be one of the busiest concert venues in North America.
You should have called me, because I would have done the same thing for Foo Fighters and make sure that they were pitch perfect. And I'd have been happy to do that for you if you'd just let me know.
It was fantastic. Death Cab for Cutie came out, and then the Foo Fighters and Dave. What a incredible show that night. And then Coldplay. That was all into itself a brilliant event. But if you think about that, Coldplay committing to come here in the midst of a global pandemic. Why? They love what we stood for. They're a band that has really taken a stand on things, and the whole Climate Pledge story really resonated. So we not only had great acoustics in the building, we've delivered the artists really great back of house experiences with a whole corridor just for the artists, their bandmates. Everyone has a dressing room. And then our friends at Amazon Music put a recording studio in that's just absolutely perfect. They no longer have to go to the bus to lay down tracks. They can literally go into a state-of-the-art recording studio embedded right in the building.
I would imagine that might make recording an album there good. If somebody wanted to do a live show and say, we want to record this show, that might help there.
Dave Grohl did a reading of his book in there. And so it's already had amazing artists doing amazing things.
If your new home is like any new home, there were probably a couple of things that came up. Say, wait a minute, we didn't think about this, or we didn't think about that. I'm assuming this off season and maybe it's even more ongoing now, that there will be, a couple of minor things, whether they're fixes, whatever you want to call them. I think you know what I'm saying. Was there anything that kind of sticks out of like, oh boy, we didn't think about this?
Well, there were a lot of things, but they were nothing of the scale of something that really was a showstopper.
Mm-hmm.
We got the building late. We've been laying in introductions now for the Kraken. We've been phasing them in. Vegas had the building 8 months before they opened. So they rehearse.
Right.
We got the building kind of cold. Uh, so everything we're doing is work in progress. Every part of the fan experience, we're committed to making it better. And part of that is being a good listening organization. And we have been listening and listening hard. And there are some things we're going to change. And I'll save that for another discussion, but there are things that are going to change. And we hear the fans, both for music and for the Kraken. And I think that's a really important part of being a great organization. We had to talk a lot these last 4 years. We had to talk up the building and talk up the NHL and talk up lots of things. But I would hope that one of our strongest traits is that we're also a great listening organization. And we have somebody running that part of our business. Her name is Jackie Halawadi, and she's we've had over 35,000 completed surveys. And it's amazing. And the consistency that comes with that, you can really chart a path to building a brilliant service organization. And, Gas, I'm down here in the desert. I'm seeing my brother Tim tomorrow, and we're working on some really, really interesting service innovations that are enabled by technology that will help really change the fan and guest experience. So I would say the building showed up pretty much as we thought, but our ambition says that we want to keep improving, and there's not anything we can't do substantially better.
Todd, I appreciate the time, and I know the folks at the Swinomish Casino and Lodge and the folks at Dick's, which is where you and I had our last meal together a while back. They thank you as well. As we close, this iconic Sonics. You're obviously talking to sports fans, but you're talking directly to basketball fans as well. We danced around this a little bit. I don't know if there's anything new for basketball fans to chew on in terms of the return of the potential return of the Sonics, and also what they could do to help. If you could just address that on our way out here about where it stands now and what can fans do, if anything, to help this situation along.
Well, we were there. We were there when the Sonics left. It was a heartbreaking event for sure. But everything's changed. Our city has changed. Our city is more robust. Our city has only grown. It's grown in not just size, but influence. Our arena is spectacular. Our arena is poised now to host an NBA team. And now what we have to do is be patient and be respectful and let the processes work. And I'm optimistic. I'm super optimistic. And I personally believe that this is going to happen. And but we're going to be careful. We're going to be thoughtful. We're going to try and be elegant. And we're never, ever going to get in front of the commissioner on this because this is complicated. And our best chance of bringing the Sonics back is following the plan that's already been set in motion. Our building is fantastic. It will be an amazing home for the NBA. And, my work's not done until we get it done. I came back. I made pledges to people. I made commitments to people. I made a commitment to you because you're a newbie to hockey and you're learning it. You're seeing how exciting it is. But, I'm looking in your background and there it is, man. That you wore it on your sleeve. You loved it. You covered it. You carried it. You were the play-by-play guy. I remember listening to you do play-by-play of the Sonics from Madison Square Garden. And that's an incredible thing. And so our pledge and promise is yet to be fulfilled, but I'm confident it will be.
And do remember, I was there at the age of 14 for the inaugural game in Indianapolis Racers history. So I'm not as much of a newbie as you think. But congratulations to you and to the Kraken organization. The launch of the team, the logo, the name, the arena, the opening night. It's all gone so well, and now you wait for the hockey to catch up, and I have no doubt but that it will. It's fun talking to you, and it's fun to reminisce about the next step of this. And on behalf of basketball fans, thanks to you guys for from the very first day recognizing that that's an important part of the Seattle sports culture. And the last 14 years can't be replaced, but certainly the future can be bright if we work together. So good luck to you on that.
Amen, brother.
Good to see you, Todd. Thanks.
Okay, guys, take care, buddy.